Okay, step aside, Pastor Steven Anderson, and back off, Ken Hovind. What I want to talk to you about today is why the rapture will happen before the tribulation, and why everyone who is currently saved by the blood of Jesus will not go through it. God always saves his people before things get really bad. He does it twice in the book of Genesis when he allowed Noah and his family to survive the flood. Not one drop of water came down until him and his family were safe and sound inside the ark. God gave everyone else a chance to get in the ark and to be saved from the coming judgment, but no one else got on it. They mocked and laughed at Noah, the same way people laughed at Christians today when we are trying to send a gospel to an unbelieving world. God did the same thing with Lot and his family. He waited until Lot and his family were outside of Sodom before he burned that city to the ground. He will do the same thing for us Christians before the 7-year tribulation comes. Despite what Ken Hovind says, no, we are not going through it. I have a few Bible verses that back up the pre-trib rapture. First of all, God has not appointed his children to wrath, but he wants us to obtain salvation through Jesus Christ. See 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 9. Secondly, either you don't know when you will leave this world, and we don't know when the rapture will happen. So in that case, the Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians 6 verse 2, "For he saith, I have heard thee in a time accepted, and in the day of salvation have I helped thee. Behold, now is the accepted time. Now is the day of salvation." Third, 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 7 through 12. I'm not going to read all those verses. I'll just make it short and simple. Those who miss the rapture will face the coming nightmare. And fourth, in Revelation, when the tribulation is actually going on, the church is not mentioned once, because we will not be here to go through it. There will be no signs of the rapture. It will just happen just like that. But what about the signs that Jesus gives us about the end times? Those are actually the signs that the tribulation is getting closer, and after that the return of Christ at the Battle of Armageddon. So between now and the time the tribulation comes, we don't know when the rapture will happen. There are several reasons why the rapture cannot come after the tribulation. Reason number one, the known day and the unknown day cannot be the same day. Matthew 24:36. "But of that day and hour knows no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only." In contrast to the unknown day, we also read about a known day. The 1260 days coincides with the 42 months or 3½ years. Unlike schemes of today that pretend to predict the time of the trumpet sound, this future timetable has a clear starting point, a clear duration, and a clear ending point. It begins at the abomination of desolation, and it ends at the return of Christ. The known day and the unknown day must be different days. The rapture cannot occur on the known day. You may ask, doesn't a close look at the context reveal that the unknown day appears in the context after the tribulation? Doesn't Matthew 24:29 say after the tribulation? Yes, you are right. But a closer look at the context reveals a double reference. And this double reference reinforces the idea of two different days. Reason number two. At the end of the age, the unbelievers are taken first. In the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather together first the tares. The harvest is the end of the world. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth, and sever the wicked among the just. See Matthew 13. Separate the wheat from the tares? No. Separate the tares from the wheat? Yes. The order of gatherings at this time is opposite to the rapture. Reason number three. Those taken on that day end up as corpses for vultures to feed on. Eagles is better translated vultures. Body means corpse, according to the parallel passage Matthew 24:28. Those taken on that day end up as corpses for vultures to feed on. This cannot be the rapture. You may answer that the birds of prey gather around those left rather than those taken. Consider 2 points. First, Revelation 19:17 shows that the birds of prey gather to a certain spot rather than being scattered to find whoever is left. Jesus' answer here in Luke 17 also speaks of such a gathering. Second, when the disciples asked where, it naturally implies, where are they taken? We already know where they are left. That's obvious. We know where the bed is, where the mill is, where the field is. That's where they are left. So the disciples wanted to know where they are taken. The only time the other meaning makes sense is when you ask, where did I leave my glasses? But in this context, where people are snatched away from various places, the natural question is, where are they taken? It's those taken who end up as corpses for vultures to feed on. This is the opposite of the rapture. Reason number 4. If all unbelievers are destroyed, then who will populate the millennium? Present-day believers will be in the millennium, of course, but as rulers, not as subjects. We will have glorified bodies, not decaying bodies. Who will we rule over? Who are the subjects with natural bodies who bear children who are subject to sin and death, and who finally rebel after the 1,000 years are over? According to the several scriptures quoted above, only believers enter the millennium. These believers have children, and apparently some of those children do not become believers. Where do the original believers come from? They aren't raptured believers. They must be after the rapture believers. If the rapture were at the end of the tribulation, then there would be no believers left with natural bodies. Therefore, the rapture cannot come at the end of the tribulation. Believers who populate the millennium are those saved after the rapture and who survive the tribulation period. By the way, those killed during the tribulation are resurrected before the millennium, so they will have glorified bodies for the 1,000 years. Some argue that Israel gets saved as Christ returns, just months after the rapture, but just in time to get saved and avoid destruction. That's pretty close timing. Impossible timing, in fact. According to the Bible, Israel does get saved at the end, but it's just before the end. But beyond Israel, the Bible also teaches that many nations will populate the millennium. How do they get there? A rapture at this time just doesn't fit. Reason number 5. Revelation 3:10 clearly says, I will keep you from the hour. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from out the hour of temptation or testing, which shall come upon all the world to try or test them that dwell upon the earth. Revelation 3:10. What could be clearer than that? It doesn't say take out. No, take out and keep out have entirely different meanings. It doesn't say keep in. No, keep in and keep out have entirely different meanings. It doesn't say keep in and take out. No, it takes twice as many words to express those two distinct ideas. God chose this simple word combination to communicate as clearly as possible. Some say this means believers are protected during testing instead of from testing. But I answer, protected from what? Believers during that time are killed, not kept. Some may respond, they are protected from God's wrath, not Satan's wrath. But I answer, look at the verse again. It doesn't talk about God's wrath, it talks about testing. Testing precedes wrath. The outcome of testing is wrath or reward, as the case may be. Saints at that time are tested. Even post-trib theologians warn us to prepare ourselves spiritually for that testing. They are the same ones who teach us that God's wrath focuses at the end of the tribulation, leaving us with the question, protected from what? Let's think deeper. The reason for the promise illustrates or illuminates the purpose of the promise. The reason prompts the purpose. Is God saying, since you have shown patience, I will now give you a bigger test? No. He is saying, you have already passed the test. Congratulations. You have shown patience, haven't you? You have leaned on God's word during the testing, haven't you? Then his promise is for you. Answering the objections is easy though, or easy enough, because the verse is very clear. But what really drives me crazy are those who throw up their hands and say that we can't know the meaning. Have you ever read something like, if the theologians disagree on this, then you and I can't possibly know the meaning? That effectively takes the book out of your hands. How dare you read the book for yourself? How dare you claim to interpret it for yourself? No. Rather than take the book out of your hands, I want to put it back into your hands. God says Revelation is unsealed. How dare I seal it back up again? Yes, Revelation has many symbols. Some symbols are explained within the book. Some are explained in the Old Testament, and some are left unexplained. But in Revelation 3:10, we don't have the symbols to worry about. It's a clear statement in an unsealed book. Reason number 6. By Revelation 19, the wife is already ready. How do we know she is ready? Well, just look at her. She's an array in fine linen. What is she ready for? The marriage supper. The invitations are about to go out. According to some, the marriage supper is over by this time, but for a marriage supper to be complete, you need the bridegroom, bride, and guests. The supper waits not only for the bride to get ready, but also for the guests to be invited. But that's beside the point. The point is that the wife is ready by Revelation 19 before Christ descends to earth. The wife is the church. For the wife to be ready, she must be in heaven. Fine linen awaits heaven. Her wedding gown is complete. She is ready. You may ask me, isn't the wife ready long before Revelation 19? I think so. Then why isn't she mentioned until now? For the sake of contrast, the wife in 19 verse 7 contrasts the harlot in verse 19 verse 2. Or chapter 19 verse 2. The fine linen, clean and white in 19 verse 8 contrasts the purple and scarlet in 17 verse 4. The marriage supper in 19 verse 9 contrasts the supper of the great God in 19:17. Or 19 verse 17. So it fits the narrative here. The marriage process in the days when Revelation was written consists of 3 parts: the engagement, the processional, and the feast. When Luke 12:36 says, return from the wedding, it speaks about the return from the wedding processional. Luke 12:36 backs up Revelation 19. A return from the wedding implies a return before the wedding. And that, people, is all I have to say about that. And there you go. The mid-tribulation and post-tribulation debunked.